So the different hand shapes that one can take whilst meditating, they call mudra. So the process of meditation is meant to sort of just quieten you down inside. And so instead of following your train of thoughts, you just become sensitized to how you actually feel. So each different hand shape is like an explosion of energy that's really adjusts the way that you feel. So you can just play with them. There's lots of books on mudra. So the famous ones really are the one we normally meditate in with the thumbs touching. The one Dr. Chi preferred, which was one thumb pushing into the lagun and the other thumb pushing into the tiger's mouth. Then there's, of course, this one, and you can have various hand, finger positions, or you can have the arms rigid, straight. And then there's like prayer posture. And like in yoga, they'll meditate sometimes like this. So this is just great for the spine. Extending the mind upwards through the middle finger, so the arms are endlessly straightening, balancing their tendency to slacken and bend. Feel the spine straightening up. Let's just go back to prayer posture. And now just stretching over the legs, so just turning towards one knee and then just stretching over. And then back up, and then the other side. So as you stretch over, just imagine that the spine is lengthening. So you don't want to hunch over. And then just without the prayer posture, so the hands behind the back. So the hands aren't interrupting the descent now, so you can get lower. Just try just a few for the head. So just turning the head. And then the other way. And now let's just try some gripping with the belly. So just pulling the belly in and then releasing. So pulling in. And now just resting it. Let's just try and just feel this lower area. So just feel the two openings underneath. So the anus and the vagina. Men don't think they have a vagina, but they do. So a sense of an opening that can draw into itself, like the anus. It pulls into itself when you tighten it. So in the middle, you've got the perineum. So you've got a hole either side. So when we contract that area, the anus tightens, the vagina tightens. The Dan-Chen navel area pulls in. The breathing diaphragm, we want that to drop. So everything is collapsing in to the Dan-Chen area as we contract and breathe in and bring the energy into this place. So now let's just try again, the same exercise basically. Feeling those structures, so just pulling in, tightening the anus, pulling up your testicles, or tightening the vagina, same thing. Pulling in the belly and breathing in so that the diaphragm, the breathing diaphragm is pushed down into this area. And then just breathe out and let it relax. And again, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and out. What we want to register is that when we tighten those places, it releases the hips. These joints here are released by the lower abdomen sort of gathering itself together. Everything's pulling towards the Dan-Chen. The only part of this area that isn't actually pulling in towards the Dan-Chen is the Min-Meng. That's actually swelling. Let's just relax it again. A little bit of breathing through the small hole. You want the hole to be so small that if you were to pull the air in really, really strongly, it would close off. The more strongly you suck in to the small hole in your mouth, the more the aperture closes. So I breathe in, and then I breathe out. Feel the action in the belly. So as I breathe in, it's as though the muscles in my belly, they really need to clench to suck the air in, and then they really need to push to blow the air out. Sucking in, blowing out. And just resting it. So let's stand up. Riding horse. coming back to the five curves. The first obvious one is the one with your arms. Hugging a tree or wrapping your arms around something. If you were going to hug someone, you'd open your arms up and you'd wrap your hands around the back of them and you would draw them in. This sense that the hands are getting behind something. So in one sense, I'm having to withdraw to make space for the other person. But in another sense, I want this to move towards them. It's like kissing, you know, your lips have to move towards the other person's lip. But at the same time, they have to withdraw so that there's no clash when they finally meet. So there's actually two movements. So it's the same here. It's like you're reaching behind the person and drawing them in and making space for it. So you're hollowing the chest, but at the same time, your hug is not just bringing them towards you, it's bringing you towards them. So there's a sense that your hands have reached behind the person and are drawing them in like this. This part of your arm, your shoulder blades, are like two hands that are operating upon you. So they have come behind and they're drawing you. You are now the spine, the skull, and down all the way down to the coccyx. So think of that as you. The rest of your body is just what you use to get around. And so as I reach behind, I'm actually drawing myself forwards as I'm drawing them towards me. We would do it naturally. You know what it's like when someone gives you a hug and they just sort of wrap their arms around you and there's hardly any contact and they pull their groin away just in case there's a naughty clash of groins. And there's nothing happens. And so you just want to have this feeling that as you're reaching out, it's already got that coming in aspect to it. Not just with my operation upon the other person, but my operation upon me. So there's something coming this way, the same as there's something coming this way. So that is our model of an embrace. Now, it's easy to do it here with another person, you know, assuming you like them. But you want that same feeling in the legs. And then, of course, it's more difficult. So this other second circle, which is just the circle of the legs, but I want it to feel pretty much the same as the hugging here. So my feet are trying to get into the ground and hug it. So rather than my feet pushing away from each other like this, my knees are rounding out in the same way that my elbows round out when I hug. And there's a sense of my feet drawing the ground towards me. We want to then just feel the top part of that. So it's easier to feel the feet, obviously. As we reach down with the feet into the ground to pull it up, this part of my legs is pulling me down to meet it. It's all to do with the mind, really. Whatever we do because we really, really want to do it. So there's no sense of reluctance. So it's not reactive, it's proactive. So normally if I'm going down towards the ground, okay, I know what I'm doing. I'm going down towards the ground, but there's part of me in my mind that's saying, oh, fuck, this is hurting. Let's get back up again. So we just want to be single-minded. So as I open the legs here, my feet are scooping the ground up, but my top of my hips are drawing me down towards that. And it's difficult because the legs start screaming quite quickly. But even that is something that you can really enjoy and get into. So what we're trying to look at really is they're not really circles. There's a sense that this circle here has got a little pulling in here, but also a little pulling in here. There's almost like a ridge that's coming forwards here to meet the other person. It's beginning to split into a figure of 8 almost as soon as it's produced. And the same here, I've got the round circle like this, but there's something here that's pulling up towards the center and something here that's pulling down towards the center. So it's already beginning to split into a figure of 8. And then just feeling the curve of the spine. So from your coccyx all the way to the crown here, we want to feel as though it's not completely straight. It's curved like this. So my spine is the back of a large circle. And my legs are the front of another circle here. So as well as my legs having a circle on this plane, they also have circles on this plane. The one that we're not used to acknowledging, which makes it the most interesting in a way. This one here. So this sense that you're getting down under something with your hands, and then your hands are coming back up the other side. So like I'm trying to make a circle like this with my hands. So not just a circle like this, but also a circle like this. The same as the legs. The legs have this circle and they have this circle. I'm sinking down, getting under something. And then as my hands start coming up the other side, that's still drawing me down. So the up of the hands is coming from the sinking of the sacrum into this structure of the legs. Let's just work on turning into ward off. Basically yield, making a circle with the hand. The hand goes out, and as it goes out, it goes up to shoulder height. And then as it comes in, it goes down to hip height. So I want this, letting it just drop and brush my knee, the inside of my thigh. Pulling this joint open here. I'm actually touching the inside of my thigh, then letting it brush out. but just allowing the arm to just sink into the leg, to try and just heal this separation between the upper and the lower body. So it's this opening here that we're sort of looking at. And then the other one. And then just both together. Try not to move side to side too much. There's a feeling that the sacrum is just in the middle and it's just turning. Just a little bit of this. This is really just both together. So I'm sinking down by letting my knees go out, but also by allowing the figure of 8 to manifest, to develop in this space. So the figure of 8 develops by the two sides of the circle pull towards each other. So this is what's happening here. the point in the ground where my feet would meet and my sacrum are drawing towards each other joyously. So they want to. So this is the bit that's difficult, bringing it back up, because there's a sense of almost wounding yourself. There's a real expansion here which tightens that elastic between my sacrum and the ground. Try not to look down. So it's like a squat. Get it from the legs rather than from your back. So don't tilt forwards too much. My legs are really willing to just take me down. Bring it back into riding horse. Just feel the legs. So the legs are wanting to take me down. My legs are really eager to just expand out and take me down to the ground. And now let's just work on the one in the arms. Reaching backwards and then bringing something around. So it's a figure of 8 basically. So the bottom of the figure 8 is just looping into your heart. And then here you're just reaching over your shoulder and around. So it is like you're just drawing something from behind you round. So you can imagine your wing, your peripheral vision. And then just both together. So it's just like tight figures of eights that loop over your shoulder. Riding horse again. Like you're holding an almighty big log. You know, like those big tree trunks when the Scottish guys toss the caber. Imagine it's just resting on your arms and it's just gradually inching you down into the legs towards the ground. So there's a world of difference between the legs holding you here in a springy, joyous way to a sort of begrudging, reluctant way, a suffering way. So the ego, Nietzsche tells us, is just this sort of structure that's just built on resentment, really. It's built on the sense of separation between you and the world. And so what he says is, what that does, it means that we live with the spirit of revenge. So there's a sense that everything that we do comes from a sense of that separation and a sense that we're always trying to get one over on whatever it is, even the space that we're in. If we're feeling that separation, then there's no compassion and there's no joy. Opening up beyond that, because that is like a real shrinkage and tightening. That's your ugly self. It's always smaller than your beautiful self. So we just want to let that go and just expand out to the very boundary of our being, to where we really do just bleed into the world. So this is why we need this really well developed and tight, to balance the release, the bleed into the world. The thing we're endeavoring to get revenge upon is our spirit, is our true self, our beautiful self. We are our own worst enemy. We scupper, our own ache to connect. Largely by attending to the thoughts in the head. And in Tai Chi, the main technique we use to counter that is sinking. So sinking, not thinking. They're mutually exclusive activities. If you find yourself thinking to yourself, then you've stopped sinking. You've had to put a barrier there and say, okay, well, I'll come back to it in a minute. I'll just think to myself a bit first. Let's just squat. Arms between the knees. So when we started doing the figure of 8 with John, he was at great pains to try and make sure that the bottom of our figure of 8, the one that was in the legs, was bigger than the top bit. So there's a sense that your legs can embrace you. You can be completely surrounded by the legs. So here, I want my elbows to just gently, if you use too much force, then you'll get a reaction which won't be pleasant. My elbows just helping my sacral area relax so that my legs can feel like my upper body can just sink right down into them, and they will actually just wrap around me. Don't use force, use mind. So what that means is you sort of rove with your spirit to try and capture the quality of mind that will allow this opening naturally. So it's very much to do with roundness. When John told me I need to become stronger, and so he said, put on 40 pounds. Keep it on for 20 years and then take it off, and then you'll have strong legs. Another part of the theory was that endomorphic people that are just basically just podgy, generally have a more cheerful demeanour. You're like the jolly farmer's wife who's sort of plump. Even just the word plump. You think of a smile, don't you? And so by putting on weight and making your body effectively of an endomorph in mass, if not in physiognomy, then your mind shifts. You stop being so neurotic and tense and hard-edged, which is what a naturally skinny person tends to be like. Just feeling yourself around this in the legs, like you're inside a sphere. And I have to really relax my sacrum to allow my legs, the outside of my legs, to just melt into this sphere. Just sit and open the legs. So these muscles here, muscles and tendons in the groin, they are responsible for not letting this open as much as it needs to. It needs to be really open. If you want to be able to sink and basically do Tai Chi properly, your legs really need to be out here. Feeling the knees just wanting to take off. So the knees are always wanting to fly away from the ground and away from you, especially away from the controlling you, which tends to be this central tunnel of your central vision. So the knees are trying to come up and out like that. So the knees would be much happier if you could actually open your legs wider. We just want to feel that. So when you quieten the mind and stop thinking to yourself, then you can just look at things. Everything becomes interesting. And anything that you do becomes energy work. So you don't need special forms or special techniques. You can just be lifting the hand and its energy. So whilst the mind is thinking, there's no energy. You can sort of assist it just by sort of reaching towards. And just breathe, just really try and get really long breathing. So they say, don't they, breathe into the stretch. And you need to hold it a while. So the inner smile, something in you is just smiling and widening to assist the stretch. So there's a wonderful TV program that was made a long time ago now, so in the 70s, I presume, of David Sylvester, who was an art critic, interviewing Francis Bacon, the painter, whose work I love. It's fascinating. I watch it regularly, 2 or 3 times a year. But he was asking Bacon why he is obsessed with the open mouth, with the scream, the open mouth and the teeth. And he's saying, oh, I've just found it endlessly fascinating and beautiful. And then he said, I'd like to be able to paint smiles as well, but I can't. I'm not good enough to paint a smile. And it's just really interesting. So there's something about the smile that's just energetic and just subtle and difficult to capture, but infectious. You know what it's like when you smile, and when you smile, the world smiles with you. When you cry alone. But David Sylvester, he interviewed lots and lots of great artists, so Jasper Johns, John Cage, Morton Feldman. And he said, by far the greatest, in his opinion, from talking to them, was Bacon. A real, authentic artist. There's the sense of opening here, but there's also a sense of the legs have come out of the sacrum and towards the back and then around. The knees are trying to go out, but the feet are part of the coming in. The knees are wanting to sort of levitate. They're wanting to rise from the ground. So you can feel that as a lift in the knees, but also as a drop in the sacrum. So the light levitating knees are actually giving my sacrum a stronger sense of heaviness. So this is what we just want to sort of acknowledge, is that it's all relative. So it's like with the elbow and the wrist. When my elbow drops, that's when the energy comes up and out of the hand. So when we push in Tai Chi, we basically just relax the elbows down, and the hands and fingers will come up and point upwards. So the elbows are heavy and are wanting to gravitate. So they're connecting with the pull of the earth. And the knees, the spirit of the knees of the heart, they're just trying to lift upwards. So it's your knees and your heart that are worshipping God, that are just lifting upwards lightly in praise. Okay, so let's stand up again. Just going backwards and forwards a bit. The circling in the knees. So that my knee is wanting to go out. So again, it's a play between the knee, the levity of the knee, and the gravity of the foot. So my knee is wanting to fly upwards and away. If I feel that strongly, assuming my foot is going to stay in place on the ground, it will actually bring me downwards with a sense of joy, with a sense of that light lifting. So rather than bringing me downwards with this sort of, oh, no, not this again. I want everything that I do to be an act of spirit, be an act of lightness and joy. So the knee is going out, but it can't keep on going out forever because it's attached to the leg, which is attached to the foot, and the foot will bring it in. So my knee is going out and my foot is just drawing it in. So it makes this beautiful curve. So my knee is going up and out and my foot is drawing it down towards it. Feeling these movements as the play of gravity and levity. And then it's like it just folds down into the foot. So here, this is the thigh rolling outwards, so the hand facing up, and then the foot just pulls it down. This is what needs to happen if I want to keep my sacrum loosely suspended in space, just hanging hanging from the crown. So my legs are moving me, but such that it doesn't really disturb my inner peace. Yeah, so whenever we do brush, knee and push in the form, this is basically what's happening. This hand has just come down, brushed the knee, and then come to rest here, but it's really with the foot. So the hand and the foot have become the same thing. So this would be much happier if my hand was actually touching the ground. Allowing the hands to just assist the legs. They're getting right down into leg territory. So just letting the back of the hands just brush this inside of this knee and then get sucked down into the foot. Yeah, so for that, you really need to sink. And for that, you really need to not think. Really rolling you into the outside edge of the foot. So that's like the weak edge. So the edge that just tends to sink and melt into the ground. But the back leg is the difficult one. The front leg it's easier to feel. So we tend to concentrate on that. So just try and get the back leg as well. And then let's just reverse the legs. So how much joy do you need to contain for this to be just happening naturally, for your sacroiliacs to really be releasing? Feel the ground. The ground is wanting to just suck that hand down into it. So forget about the cushion of air that the hand is resting upon. It's not resting, it's really being pulled. So the lower you get, the rounder you get. Just feel how jolly you become when you sink and become round. So just trying to use your practice time really trying to use it to generate real proactive positivity, real spirit, real joyous spirit. The eternal return, the eternal recurrence of the same. So Nietzsche's thing that you just need to live with so much Dionysian passion and joy that if you had to live that moment endlessly, it wouldn't get you down. So this is like the opposite of the spirit of revenge, the spirit, the grumbling spirit, the spirit of moaning and complaining. So this is just really taking something that is difficult and challenging and just really embracing it. The trade-off between comfort and aliveness. Nietzsche he said God is dead. But he said God died out of pity for human beings because human beings no longer have the energy to sustain him. We don't have the spirit to actually make our gods real. So when people say, I don't believe in God because I know better, because I know about science and all that shit. So no, you don't believe in God because you can't. You don't have the energy to. So what Pat said to me, Pat said, the big hole in my life is belief. I was never able to believe, to have faith. And so she just knew that it was a lacking. It was something, she just didn't have the power to just embrace this concept of the wholly other, of the beyond. So Nietzsche said, God is dead. And that fact is going to ruin mankind, because what he's going to do is put his own ego in his stead. We will just become a species of self-worshippers, which is exactly what has happened. You know the story of Dr. Chi? He made his big Tai Chi breakthrough by working with Chen Manqing every day for many years and nearly died. You know, it sort of just threw him into this energetic state, which he just didn't really have the physical apparatus to hold. So he was in hospital dying. And apparently his wife's best friend, who was a Christian, came to visit him. And she just said to him, "Do you want to live?" And he says, "Yes, I do." She says, "Well, you must pray to Jesus." And he said, "But I don't believe in Jesus." And she said, "You don't need to believe, you just need to pray." So she taught him the Lord's Prayer, and he spent all night praying. He thought, I might as well give it a go. He spent all night praying, and the next day started to get better. So that's when he became a Christian. And so something had to happen just to tip his spirit slightly over the top. He just needed an injection in order to be able to use that spirit which had developed so well in the Tai Chi and just put it to its real use. The real use of spirit is the worship of God. This is our function. We are shepherds of being, as Heidegger said. Not self-indulgent wankers, which is what we tend to have become, obsessed with comfort and pleasure. So the spirit just wants to lift. That is worship. Prayer is the raising of the heart and mind to God in the absence of thoughts. The work is gradually intensifying and intensifying. So you really begin to throb with energy. And then you just sort of break through. You break through, and it's as though you've become a creature. Suddenly you're much bigger than you physically are. And there's all these structures that are just coming out of you. These are the structures that John was working on in Blakeney. So the dragon body, the Greek warrior, with his breastplate and his helmet with the visor and the plume, the mane going down the back. So the legs straightening and bending at the same time. We're a hybrid. We're a crossbreed between Cro-Magnon, the erect, long beanpole spine, and Neanderthal man that's of the ice, and so is always trying to get down, because otherwise he'll be seen. So the Cro-Magnon man is trying to be tall, to look over the top of the grass so he can see potential danger or food in the distance. we contain those. So in Tai Chi, we tend to work on the Neanderthal more because that's the one we tend to have missed out on. And now just feeling this extension, something really shooting out the top of your head through the ceiling, and the roots just driving straight down. So you're the overcoat hanging on the coat hanger. Loose and shapeless. And so just really try and feel the suspension from the ceiling. So it almost gets to the point where you almost feel like you could just release the legs and you'd still stay up. So what's holding you up is not the strength of the legs driving you away from the ground, but just this suspension from the heavens.